Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmed. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace. Hey folks, welcome back to Consulting Mastery. Before we get you to this week's episode, I wanted to let you know that we have a live workshop coming up on power positioning for consultants. If you want to learn the exact same framework that we teach our clients inside 90-Day Pipeline of how to position themselves as the one and only indisputable choice in their markets, attract perfect clients, and command premium fees, you can do so on our live workshop at powerpositioningworkshop.com. It's just $49 to join us, and you can grab your seat at powerpositioningworkshop.com. With that, here's this week's episode. Emily Fabiano, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Give folks a quick introduction as to kind of who you are, what you do.
Absolutely. So I'm Emily Fabiano. I own a workforce consulting company that I started in June of 2021. It's called Workmorphus, and we help state governments and national nonprofits design job training programs, specifically to make sure that people in given communities have the skills and the supports that they need to succeed in their careers. It's a kind of obscure area, but it really comes down to matching the supply of skilled workers with the demand for open available jobs in the marketplace. And what we do is we work with business, which is driving the demand, businesses, education, and training providers that are providing the supply of skilled workers. And then ultimately, our goal is to work with governments to make sure that they can help facilitate those connections and build programs and policies that prepare people for jobs.
So I know the answer to this, but for our listeners, who's your client in the end?
State governments and national nonprofits.
State governments and national nonprofits. Okay. What's the origin story here, Emily? How did you get into this work?
The origin story dates back to when I graduated from college and moved from Tucson, Arizona to Columbus, Ohio. I was looking at all sorts of different jobs at startups and ultimately ended up applying for an outlier job in what's called the Ohio Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation, which is where it all started. And started out in a super entry-level job there doing communications work. I had a boss who really believed in me and gave me a lot of responsibility in that job, and ended up moving up multiple times when I worked for the governor, Governor Kasich, who was governor at the time. And then ultimately a new governor, Governor DeWine, and Lieutenant Governor Husted came in, asked me to be the interim director of the office that I worked in. And I ultimately became the full-time version of that. I got to lead the office, and my role was to build a team and work across different agencies within state governments to design job training programs for the state of Ohio. And the reason that I got there is because I had some amazing career sponsors who believed in me and gave me a shot. At the time, I don't know that anybody knew this, but I was 24 when I got promoted to the director job and got a seat at the table that really gave me an incredible insight into how government works, but also the network, the responsibility, and the confidence that helped me start my business. So what I wanted to do is ultimately, when I knew it was time to move on from that job, which I loved, I wanted to bring the best aspects of the work to the marketplace. And to me, that was the remarkable impact that comes from when leaders in business, education, and government come together to solve real problems for people and for the economy. And that's what Workmorphus specializes in.
What motivated you to go out on your own and start a consulting business versus taking another role in another state government or within the same state government?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to start a business. I never thought I would do it as early as I did. I was 28 when I started, but I saw a need in the market. And frankly, I started looking for career opportunities prompted by a move. I moved 2 hours away from where my job was located, and I didn't want to do the commute. So although I loved my job, I just couldn't find anything that had the same level of impact and scope of the work that I was doing. So I decided to create something. And I also had a lot of people who said, we'd love to work with you. Let us know if you ever go out on your own. So that gave me the confidence to start my business when I did.
That's the curse of the perfect job, right? Is like sometimes you just can't replicate that environment. It reminds me of, and I wouldn't call this a perfect job by any means, but when I was at Ernst & Young, the thing that I miss most about that experience is working with really, really, really smart people every day, being surrounded by just the brightest minds. It's just really hard to replicate that outside on your own in another job or even as a solo consultant.
Yeah. The access and the impact of that kind of job is remarkable. And I hope to continue having that impact. I've definitely felt like I can continue to have that level of impact and influence, but through our consulting work, which is the best of both worlds.
Yeah, you replace smart colleagues with smart clients, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. So you started in 2021, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And it's 2024 now. So now take me forward. You start your business. Give me the, actually, don't take me forward yet. Give me the quick story of, how did you get your first few clients? You hang out your shingle and then what do you do?
It was very much based on my network. As I mentioned, when I decided to start the company, a few people had come to me and said, we'd love to work with you. So the first thing I did after I started the company was call those people and say, hey, it's time. So I was very fortunate that when I started the company, we immediately had clients and we pretty immediately became profitable. So I consider myself very lucky in that way. But yeah, mostly driven by the network.
And now fast forward to 2024, we started working together. The time of this recording is October 2024. I think you joined 90 Day Pipeline, I want to say in June. Does that sound about
That's
right?
right. Mm-hmm.
What was going on in the first half of this year that prompted us to get together?
Oh gosh. To be candid, I think I had kind of exhausted my network at that point. I reached that critical mass point that a lot of people do in professional services where even though we had clients who were eager to work with us and who were coming back to us, we actually had 75% of our clients came back to us in 2023 to work together again. But I kind of hit that critical mass. And we're fortunate because starting in 2021 and 2022 and 23, we grew our revenue, we doubled it year over year. But in 2024, when we basically exhausted my network, I realized too late that we needed to be building new relationships and going outside of that network. So that was the perfect time. I saw an ad on LinkedIn, one of the only ones that ever resonates with me. I am so annoyed by all the marketing out there, but when I saw your marketing efforts on LinkedIn, I was like, oh my gosh, Ahmed is seeing into my soul right now. So it really resonated, and it felt like time to really get outside perspective and help as I grew our company's reputation and network.
Yeah, so we went from annoying to just creepy, right? Like how do they know how do they know what I'm thinking? Why is this so accurate? This is a little bit uncomfortable, but I get it.
But that's why I wanted to work with you, because I'm like, okay, if Ahmed can see into my soul and cut through all the noise on LinkedIn, this is the person and the team that I need to help me reach my clients.
So tell me what I want you to talk me through kind of the first few steps you took in the program. And just for the listener's sake, first thing we do inside the program is we help you articulate a ideal client profile, an ICP. We call it client clarity. And then we have you go and do some direct firsthand customer research. And I really want to get a sense from you, Emily, as to, how bought in were you to that idea of doing customer research? And did you have any hesitations or concerns about it?
I would say I was most bought into the strategy section of the work because I felt the reflection was necessary, especially because, in addition to kind of reaching the critical mass within my network, there are a lot of changes happening in my industry and environment. So I knew it was time, But with the customer research component of this, although I love having conversations, I was a little bit skeptical about this because I didn't want to appear as if I was out there selling something or, you know, asking for more value than I'm providing. But to answer your question directly, so I started working through the strategy worksheet, outlined 3 potential target markets, and in the process of doing so, realized that the current target market at the time that I was doing the exercise wasn't the best target market for us moving forward because of some of those changes. So I identified a new target market that we had been thinking about and decided to pursue that. And that's when I started doing the customer listening calls. And although I was skeptical at the beginning, one thing I love is connecting with people and learning from them. And through this process, I started with 3 calls and I was worried I wouldn't get them. It ended up expanding, and now I've probably had upwards of 20 calls just because they're so valuable and there's so much to learn. So that was really enlightening for me. What I thought might be a drag was one of the most powerful parts of the program and for my business.
Now, I'm curious, you go through the client clarity exercise and you have 3 different target markets in mind. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like through that reflective process, you came to the conclusion that the market that you had in mind maybe wasn't the market to pursue anymore. Uh, did you have a hunch that might be the case, or were you not thinking along those lines before you started the exercise?
I knew that something needed to change, but I didn't know what it was. And by going through the process and the worksheet and the exercises, it became clear why we needed to change. So for me, it helped me take it from point A, I know something needs to change, to point B. Oh, it's very clear. I see the path forward. And then the listening component of that really brought it home because that's how I learned what the needs are in this new market that we're thinking about.
So you do the customer research. Oh, and one more question I have about that, actually. You were concerned, and this is a common concern people have around, well, I don't want to ask for anything. Are they going to think I'm trying to sell them something? Is it going to look like I'm needy? How did they feel in the end?
Appreciated, listened to. It's interesting. A big part of my hesitation is because the folks that I was reaching out to are VP or executive director level people. So these are people who are very busy. And I wanted to make sure that if I was going to them, that there was some value behind it. And the way that I positioned it is, hey, I'm doing some research on how this group of people deals with this challenge. And I'd love to talk with you more about it and hear your perspective. And in doing that, I was able to not only get their perspective, but I also stuck around after. And if they had additional time, I talked to them about my experiences and helped answer some of their questions too. So I do feel like there was mutual value. And sometimes people just like being able to talk through their challenges and being listened to. So there was a lot of value beyond what I expected.
Well, there's value in giving people a space or a container, if you will, through which to think through and discuss a very challenging business problem,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with an outsider who, ostensibly runs a business solving that problem. And
Right.
I could gain some insights from. And I think that's what sounds like you experienced, which is fantastic.
And the
So,
key was we weren't selling them anything. We were just there to listen. And that's the idea that 90-day pipeline is really working with, that I appreciated, was there's no sale here. This is just a conversation. And I think that's why it resonated so strongly with them. And, many of those conversations have led to more conversations. How can you help us with this? And it's all part of the process, but it's enjoyable along the way, much more than I expected.
yeah, the purpose of customer research is not to create opportunity, but that is a byproduct of it when it's done right.
Yes.
So you do the customer research. Sounds like you validated a different target market, and I'm curious now, how disruptive were the insights that you gained?
Hmm. They were pretty disruptive. So I had a hypothesis that there was a challenge in this market. And when I started sitting down and actually talking to the people who are facing that challenge, I learned about 10 different other challenges. But what was really interesting is the more people I talked to, the more people were recommended to me. Hey, you talk to me, you should talk to my colleague about this, or you should talk to this organization. They're doing something similar. And themes started to emerge. And those themes were valuable not only in conceptualizing what we can do to support, but also one of the outcomes of these conversations is that the people I talked to really hadn't been able to talk to anyone else about these challenges before. And they may not have thought, oh, wow, my peers, competitors, whatever you want to call them, are also facing these challenges. So a couple of people that I talked to said, if you ever convene a group of the people that you're talking to, I'd love to be part of it. So it evolved into something bigger that has now become an informal and hopefully will be formal soon community of people who are facing similar challenges and want to get together to learn from one another. And I think that's really powerful. And it's something I did not set out to do, but that has been a great learning experience and revelation for us.
And just for the listeners' sake, can you share with us what was that tangible pain or challenge that was professed to you across these conversations?
So the people that I was talking to are leaders of national workforce focused nonprofits. These are organizations that receive funding from philanthropic sources to go in at the state level and help states implement changes to workforce policies and programming. So really closely aligned with what we do. The challenge that they were facing is that it's difficult to work with states because they're coming in and offering value to states in terms of funding or resources or staff supports. But states are pretty overwhelmed right now with the amount of grant funding that's out there, everything that's on their plates, et cetera. But there are no shortage of problems and there's no shortage of funding and resources available. So what we were trying to figure out is where do those connection points fail? And where can we create better relationships between those organizations where we know there's a real problem in a state and this national nonprofit can come in with the resources and supports needed to help solve it. So that was the hypothesis, was just we know there are challenges. And then as I had those conversations, we came out with we narrowed it down to 9 distinct challenges out of many that they face, whether it's transitions in, who's in office, governors, transitions in staff, sustainability of funding. So we have a whole list of challenges now that we can work with and work through with them.
So you get all this data, and there's this insight that you have now around the common threads and the common challenges that this particular market is facing. It's a little bit disruptive. It wasn't even a market you were pursuing previously, so it's kind of all relatively new information. What do you do with all this information now? Where do you go from here?
Well, we are working on turning that information into community topics that we're going to further explore with this group of people who want to come together. And ultimately, it may and should inform what we do moving forward. But right now, we're still in the learning phase. So we're now hosting community events where we're bringing together this group of people around a given topic and helping them see how other peers solve the same problem. And we're learning in that process, but we're also giving them the chance to learn from each other.
So you've taken these insights and the learning that came from the customer research conversations, and you're turning that into a community that essentially gives these folks in your target market the space to connect with each other and to essentially share and swap notes on the problems that they're facing, in a way that presumably didn't exist. They didn't have a space like this before.
Exactly. And that's what so many of them told us is, wow, aside from talking to my team about this, we all face the same challenges internally, but we didn't realize that other people were thinking about this. So it was really powerful for them to know that somebody out there can help them, whether it's one of their peers or us. So it's kind of a niche that we've discovered, But it's been wonderful because it's opened the door for so many conversations and so much learning, and has created some real tangible opportunities. One of the things we're trying to do is make sure that we're providing a lot of value in these conversations. So we're structuring it around real challenges. We're bringing our expertise, but we're also giving space for people to learn from one another. It's
Yeah.
been fun.
What's fascinating about it, and I've been excited about it ever since you and I talked about it inside the program, is, number one, it's evergreen customer research. So the way
Mm-hmm.
that you were able to kind of get a pulse in this market, early days, you now have a way of doing that evergreen just by virtue of facilitating this community, because you'll be hearing them talk about their problems and their pains and their challenges among their peer group in the wild, and you'll be facilitating
Yeah.
those conversations. So you'll be there. That's natural, evergreen customer research. And it gives you now a way to open up new relationships and open up doors, right? So the classic problem to take this to something very tactical, the classic problem of, I get a connection on LinkedIn and now I want to close a deal, right? And how do I, what's the connection point? Well, the truth is there's a massive gap in between those two things. And that gap is, in a word, trust. And so
Yeah.
what you have now is a way of inviting people into an experience, into a community, and having them become part of the community, build trust with you, build trust with their peers. And, I think my expectation is 90% of the time that results in no business for you. But the clients who do end up being good fits to work with you will emerge from that community because you gave them a safe space to engage.
Yes, exactly. And our goal is not to sell anyone anything in these conversations. We're there to convene and provide as much value as we can pack into, let's say, an hour with these people. But in doing that, we become the people who have provided value and who have the most knowledge on the challenges that they're facing. And I am very confident that anybody who needs support with the work is going to know exactly where to go when the time is right.
Well, that's who I want to buy from, right? Like, I want to buy from the organization that is facilitating interesting conversations among my peers and clearly has some expertise on the matter, and is not overtly trying to push me or cajole me into purchasing something, because these are not, you're not selling widgets, you're not selling a few $1,000 engagement. These are expensive projects that are very in depth. So I want to buy from the
Right.
person that's showing up and providing that kind of value in a safe space, not from the one that's asking me for a conversation on LinkedIn so they can sell me something, right?
Yes.
Now, you just closed a deal a couple of weeks ago, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Recently? What's the story there?
Yes.
How did that come about?
That came about because I started going back out and having conversations again. There was a time where we had so much going on, so many projects, so many new and returning clients coming to us in 2023, that I had my head down working in the business rather than working on it. And 90-day pipeline helped me justify, which is ridiculous that I had to justify working on the business rather than in it. But it gave me the opportunity to go back out there and to start talking to people. So this particular opportunity came from not necessarily the network that we had already, but the trust that we had built from doing a similar type of work previously in a state and an environment that we had worked in before.
And did you find that in this case, the whole customer research methodology was helpful in helping you get a sense of what the client's needs and challenges were?
Yes, that is something that I've always felt pretty strong in, being able to listen to understand rather than listening to respond. It is a skill that got me through my career in public service. And it's really important in the work that we do day to day. But being able to apply it and contextualize it for the business is critical. So being in those conversations, absorbing the information, asking the right questions, I was able to take what I already felt was a strength and refine my approach even more. And then when you are asking the right questions and really paying attention to the answers, you can use that information to mirror back to the client in their own words. I think that's what's so important is we may be talking about the same challenges, but if I'm using the wording in my head and not in yours, then that might not be something you want to buy, even if it's the same service. So the idea and the methodology for listening was really important in helping us move that project forward.
It's a very simple idea, but I find this fascinating. You know, the difference between somebody buying and engaging with you at, six figures and beyond and not buying is words. It's just words.
Mm-hmm.
It's just words. You use the right words and they buy. You use the wrong words and they don't buy. It's as simple as that. And I think that's the what you're alluding to there, is that the power of customer research is it helps you use the words that build
Yeah.
trust and that make them want to buy, as opposed to your words, which are your words and your perspective. And you've really got to build that bridge and meet them in their world and their perspective. And that's what customer research enables you to do.
Yeah. And that is why, for me, it was the most powerful part of the whole program, is because I uncovered the insights that allowed us to be very well aligned with our market. And I encourage anybody who's going through the program or considering it to be open to the process and to follow the steps, because when you do follow the process in 90-day pipeline, there's a reason why it works. And I always like to tweak processes to be my own, but I actually did follow the process this time around, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah. But you are now tweaking it to be your own, right? Because your
True.
roundtable idea, while it is a what I call a middle of funnel strategy that I've seen before and that clients have done before, you've got your own twist to it. And what I love about what you did in the program is you took the ideas, you implemented them almost, I remember saying to you, like, this is textbook. What you're doing right now is textbook. Like, the interviews and the insights, the way that's informing your positioning and your offer, it's textbook. But you're also making them your own and applying them in ways that are unique to your context, your business, and your market. And that's precisely, frankly, what works and what we want to see.
Awesome.
Now, tell me this, and I hope you don't mind me going here. You made a comment in the program around, I think it was reflecting on a particularly difficult stage emotionally in the business where you were, kind of frustrated with some stuff. And you made a comment about how some of the work inside the program kind of shifted your emotional state and made you feel a little bit more empowered and excited and motivated. If you don't mind commenting, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that transformation, because I think a lot of folks listening are frankly frustrated with their business, with their results, with what they're doing, with their lack of results, and would love to shift into a more empowered and enabled frame of mind and state.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen for you?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked the question, because if I were on the other side listening, I would want to hear the message that I'm about to share. So at the beginning of this year, well, backing up a little bit more, Workmorphus has had incredible successes beyond my dreams, and I am very grateful for that. This year, at the start of the year, in addition to being head down in the business with a lot of projects going on, I had a lot going on personally. If you look at the typical list of things that stress out human beings: losing a loved one, moving, selling a house, starting new jobs. All of those things happened to me and my spouse over the course of a couple of months. So we had a lot of life change going on. And in the process, I was just kind of in there doing the work for the business. I was working in the business instead of on it. And that all happened right as I started to bump up against the edge of my network, and the market is changing. We're in an election year, the economy is changing. These are all factors that are not excuses, but they are things that contribute to how your business is doing. And because I wasn't laser focused on those, I poked my head up one day and I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have been doing these things way earlier. So when I started the program, I was really operating out of a place of almost fear, where I was like, man, I wish I would have thought of this earlier. And I should have been, building this pipeline a long time ago, because sometimes it can take 9 months to close these deals. So that's where things started. And I had a lot going on personally. But through the process, I got to hear from so many other people who were in a similar position and who were not failures. Obviously, they were doing amazing things. And it helped me see that this is all part of the process. and that we're all kind of working toward similar goals. So it was learning from the community, it was following the process, it was really dedicating the time and attention that this deserves for the first time for my business, working on the business instead of just in the business. And through that process, it was kind of an awakening for me where I got to see the value of that and the fact that when you do, as the founder, take that time and focus and invest it in the business, you see the rewards pretty immediately, even though it's a long sales cycle. So I started out in that place of feeling reactive and ended in a place where I felt empowered and ready to step into the next phase of the business with confidence.
Yeah, and I've seen that transformation in you, and that's been really, really exciting to watch. So kudos to
Thank
you
you.
because you did the work and you engaged. And and I would contend that, this is what I hear from a lot of people. A big part of that is just going out and talking to prospective clients and having interesting conversations about their problems and their challenges and their pain points and getting some validation that, oh, there's some real tangible stuff here that I can solve and that will actually get me excited to solve. I think when folks are kind of left to their own devices and they're sitting around in their office thinking about their business, it's really easy to get it's really easy to get a little bit down on yourself. But when you go and you meet the market and you realize, oh, okay, there's work here to do, that has a certain way of energizing you, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a remarkable team, a small team, two other full-time people who have been part of this process, and they've seen it. I mean, they've been here the whole way. They believe in the mission. And part of what was really exciting about this process is even though I was the one going through 90-day pipeline, our team was working together and we worked on different components together, strategized together. And that was a really remarkable part of the process too, because the team has come out on the other side a lot more aligned and excited about what comes next for the company. So that's been an additional benefit of this as well. And it wasn't taking me away from the business as I was a little bit worried in the beginning. It was giving me the space to think about the future, plan for the future, and giving the team the space to continue producing the great work that our clients expect of us.
Now, I want to commend you on something that you said, and I also want to dig a little bit deeper here. And we're going to wrap up in a few minutes and get your perspective on this. You made a statement that sounded something like this: it's an election year, the economy is changing, and these aren't excuses, but they're just circumstances that we had to deal with. Boy, that's a fine line, right? A lot of people a lot of people currently are looking at those circumstances currently and going, wow, forget 2024. It's a write-off, right? Like here's the 2025, right? Election's over, whoever is in office, and the economy is growing, and when things are better economically and when the circumstances change, then we'll do well in business. So let's just sit on our coattails here and wait for things to improve. That wasn't your attitude, was it?
No.
What was your approach to this year? How did you think about some of the challenges and the circumstances of 2024?
Well, one, extreme ownership. I didn't want to blame anyone or anything else for the circumstances and the situation. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but I looked at it as I own this business. I operate in this market, and it is my responsibility to understand the circumstances and to think about how we continue to provide value to our clients in this environment. And our clients, I mean, everyone, but particularly our clients, because we work in the public sector too, they're very concerned about elections, whether they're excited or, maybe it's a governor's office, they have a transition, the staff are wondering whether they're going to have a job in a couple of months. I've been in that position, so I understand it. The nonprofits that we work with, some of them rely on funding from government grants that may or may not exist. So it's not just a me thing, it is an everyone thing. And what I really turn my attention to is, what are our clients struggling with right now, and how do we provide value to them in a time when they are facing a lot of uncertainty? So instead of existing in my own uncertainty and creating a miserable environment, I set out to figure out what are the needs in the marketplace and how can we help address them. So that kept me energized and focused on the future. I think people are in wait and see mode right now. And honestly, it's driving me a little bit crazy because not a lot of decisions are being made. But my message has been, let's go out there and prepare for the different outcomes that could happen and come out on the other side of the election and in 2025, 7 steps ahead of everybody else. Because when everyone was scared, we were working. That's the mindset shift that I've made that will help our company and our clients moving into this next phase in 2025.
So what I love about that, and what I think is just magical about what you said in that entire approach, is you are not merely communicating this to clients. Because I communicate this to our clients and our prospects as well, is don't sleep on 2024. If you're waiting for things to turn around, waiting for the elections, waiting for the recession to end, waiting for, you might not last that long. First of all, you might get just swept away. And frankly, the folks who are going to really capitalize on the boom when the boom comes are the ones who, in your words, are not waiting right now, but they're working now. So take advantage of the season, the opportunity. And what I love about what you just said is you're not just saying that to clients, because your clients need that message. A lot of them are in wait and see mode, like you said. They need that message, but you're communicating it from a place of integrity because you are not in wait and see mode. You are working. And you can say the words all you want, right? But if you're in wait and see mode, the words don't land the way they do when you are in integrity making that statement.
Yeah. And people see right through that. And that's a big part of my shift in 2024 has been, let's be what we want to see in the marketplace. And as part of 90 Day Pipeline, I've used that opportunity to get out there and talk about some of these issues that people don't really talk about in our industry, like trust and the certain ways that we're failing the people we serve if we're not making decisions and if we're not working together. So although those are kind of like my hot take videos on LinkedIn, it's important that we talk about this and not just sit on our hands, because if we do, we're ultimately, in my industry, we're failing citizens who really need our help. So I have no patience for it. And by acting that way, I think I can help inspire more decision making faster, hopefully.
Brilliant. What's your vision for this, Emily? Where are you taking this? What does the future look like?
Well, the future is clearer, certainly, than it has been before, but it's evolving. So we're still kind of working through that. But ultimately, we want to be able to make more change happen at a broader scale. And the way that I think we can do that is by working with national organizations that partner with states. Another practical part of this is maybe somebody listening will relate to this. It is very difficult as a small business to win RFPs. And one of the things I realized through this process as part of the strategy part is, it's very difficult to win an RFP with a state, even if you are the preferred vendor or if it's special procurement. So I had to try and challenge myself to think differently. How do we work smarter, not harder? How do we continue to serve the clients we love working with and do it from a different angle? So we're focused on a new target market that will help us continue to do the work and create the impact at a larger scale. And we're focused on strategic partnerships that allow us to provide complementary value to others who work in the space. Maybe who are doing more quantitative data work and we're doing the qualitative strategy work, and focusing on a suite of different tactics that will help us continue to expand that impact that I talked about before.
You get me all tingly and excited when you talk about strategic partnerships, because you know what I think about that. It is the most underrated strategy available to you. Super
Absolutely.
powerful.
I'm working on that now. So hopefully I'll have a success story or two to share with you soon.
All right. Get on my call next week. We'll talk about it. Yeah. Emily, anything, first of all, thank you for sharing the journey and the insights. It's, as I'm sure you can relate to, these are powerful stories for people to hear when they're trying to follow in your footsteps and get to where you are. So appreciate you sharing. Anything that you feel is important to mention that we haven't covered so far?
I think one thing that's become increasingly apparent to me is the importance of community, especially in 2024. And I mentioned that in the context of our target market and their desire for community. But that is one of the great benefits of working with you and your team has been to be a part of a community that is working towards similar goals. So learning from you and all the others who are on the team, like Anna and Kat and so many others who are really experts in what they do, but also learning from everybody else who's going through this process. So whether it's listening to this podcast and some of the free resources that you have out there, being able to hear some of these similar stories, completely different industries in some cases, but a lot of similar themes has been really powerful. And I've enjoyed the opportunity to be connected to this community. So for anybody who's listening, I would encourage you, don't wait to get involved in communities or to make that investment in yourself, because it has been really remarkable for me, and I'm confident it would be for others as well.
And you have to contribute, right? And I think it's no coincidence that that's been your experience as somebody who has been a key contributor to the community, and that many people inside 90 Day Pipeline will say, we learned a ton from Emily, for lack of a better term, learning out loud. Because you were the person that would do something, get a win, get a result, learn a lesson, and then you'd be in Slack sharing the document, sharing the resource, sharing the lesson. And in doing so, you enrich everybody's experience. And if everybody does that, we all learn together. Adults learn together. That's the fact. I mean, you can do the research on this. Like, adults learn together. They learn in groups. They learn through collaboration. And I think you've really modeled that behavior, and we've appreciated having you in the program.
Thank you. It's been a joy.
And thanks for coming on the show, Emily. Appreciate it.
Thank you.